And we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart, the Idaho homer himself, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir.
Sadly, Idaho lost this past weekend, but an interesting thing to monitor with the transfer portal guy that's not getting a ton of buzz. Giovanni McCoy, their starting quarterback, who is the Jerry Rice Award recipient, just entered the transfer portal. He's a name to watch maybe for some of these mid to low-level Power 5 teams that are looking for a quarterback. He could be a good player. Not Cam Ward level, but could be a good starter.
Well, Cam Ward and Will Howard, the Washington State and Kansas State quarterbacks, both currently at the University of Miami. So let's see how that goes. We'll talk a little bit of portal here tonight, some craziness. Arkansas, looks like maybe KJ Jefferson has made a decision. They go and get Boise State quarterback. Was it Tylen Singleton or what was it?
Taylon Green.
Taylon Green. Why do I always call a kid Singleton? I don't know why I always do that. And I even got it written down right here on the notes. But they go and get Green, which feels like it could be a push out to KJ. Let's see what happens there. Maybe he just sits behind him. We'll find that out. But Dylan Raiola, the 5-star quarterback out of Georgia, well, not really Georgia, but he moved to Georgia to play for Georgia. But now he might be going to Nebraska, Joe. Uh-oh.
I don't know if this is – let me rephrase. I don't want to say that I don't know if this is legit. Stephen Wilfong was the one who flipped his crystal ball prediction. He's already committed to Georgia. But, dude, if this thing actually comes to fruition and he ends up deciding to go to Nebraska, that's huge for the Cornhuskers. He's got family ties there. But it also doesn't really – and we'll take this angle in a second when we break this down after the break. They already have a high 4-star committed. They have 2 quarterbacks in this cycle. Puglisi, 2 guys already committed. So if they lose Raiola, it sucks. But some people believe that Puglisi could actually end up being a very, very high quality starting player in the SEC if he ends up being the guy.
They won a national championship, actually backup national championships with a walk-on. Pretty sure that Georgia recruits at a high enough level that it might not matter. Okay.
Exactly.
Raiola does have some deep ties to Nebraska. We'll talk a little bit about that. But I'm really excited about this next segment that we'll touch on, Joe. Manny Diaz to Duke. What a hell. And by the way, did you see my man made a free throw? Of all places you get announced at a basketball game and you're challenged to make a free throw, I feel like the place that you have to make the free throw of any place on planet Earth is Duke. Okay? Under pressure, under siege, Manny Diaz from the free throw line like Steph Curry swish.
Did you also see Curt Cignetti when he decided to go to Indiana? I always love the bit where these new coaches get trotted out during these basketball games. Curt Cignetti goes out there and he starts taking shots at Purdue and Ohio State. It's so freaking awesome seeing that happen. But no, Diaz, I missed the free throw thing. That's pretty fun.
Not only that, you remember that your former coach went to his next school and said family. Remember the big old family thing? Yeah, yes, that was a basketball game too.
Over that.
Yeah, the big controversy. And you know what? It was the best thing that could have ever happened to Brian Kelly for LSU fans, because then the entire state of Louisiana felt attacked. Okay? So it's the best thing that could have happened to him in a 24-hour span. God, I love college football. The Cotton Bowl. And, Joe, don't forget about the Alamo. We'll talk about the Cotton Bowl and the Alamo. Joe, I'm going to ask you to write a thesis on the Alamo. Do you know what happened at the Alamo?
I mean, okay, the very bare –
how do you not know history?
The very bare minimum, yes, I know the story of the Alamo, but do I know the full in-depth history of it? No, absolutely not. I do not. Wow. I can only retain so much information, Blake, okay?
Well, do you even know where it was fought? Do you even know where it went down?
Isn't it San Antonio?
Oh, look at you. Okay.
Look at me, man. I'm a historian.
Well, calm down, Tony Soprano, okay? Maybe not so much, but we'll talk about the Alamo Bowl. And, Joe, can Missouri knock off Ohio State? My goodness.
Possible.
They don't have their quarterback, Kyle McCord. Hey, speaking of Nebraska, He's on a visit to Nebraska, and looks like that's where he's going to go, along with Julian Fleming, who's making some noise out there in Nebraska too. So we'll see. All right, we got a lot to touch on, a lot to talk about. Let's do this first. Everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share to all those social media groups on Facebook, share to your own social media pages, wherever you're listening to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. And if you're continuously watching us or listening to us on YouTube, over 300,000 views, Joe, in the last 28 days. Don't forget to go ahead and hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Let's get a quick break. Talk about our friends over at BetOnline. Dylan Raiola to Nebraska. Here comes Matt Rule. Uh-oh. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag.
We're back.
Hold. I'm calling it now. You ready?
Yeah.
Washington's taking down Texas.
Oh, so now you're putting your pick in. That's
Hell
your pick?
no, I'm not putting my pick in. You think that the great state of Texas, do you know we're about to talk about the Alamo in a minute, okay? Walker, Texas Ranger was in the state of Texas. Hell no. Listen to me. This is the only time you're ever going to hear me say this. Let's go Horns. Yeah.
I'm so wait. I thought you just said that Washington was going to beat him. I don't understand what you're going with
joking.
here.
It was supreme sarcasm. Let's go Texas.
Just causing problems out here, man. Always causing problems.
Look, you know what? If I'm going to get absolutely obliterated by Washington fans in the comments, I'm going to continue to agonize you. Okay, you talk about you talked about my beard, Joe. One guy talked about my beard. He said he
what did he say?
I can't say it. This is a family show, but it talked about the nether regions and hair.
This isn't a family show. Let's be honest with ourselves here. I mean, you're pulling the move that I pulled with Alabama. You know, you're not gonna double down.
I heard that did you see that there was one comment when you talked about Alabama that I guess Danny from Tuscaloosa works for the PD there. He says he's putting out a warrant for your arrest.
Stop. Wait, stop. Actually, someone commented.
Danny from Tuscaloosa said he put out a warrant for your arrest for
doing what?
He said extortion or something. Like it was I don't know. I don't remember.
It's defamation. I don't know.
You know who is about to be extorted though? Who? Georgia in the quarterback position, because Dylan Raiola, it is trending, Joe, could be flipping his commitment from the University of Georgia to Nebraska. Now, calm down. Let's see how this goes. But let's talk about the possibility. Joe, there's a lot of smoke around Dylan Raiola flipping his pick to Nebraska. As we mentioned earlier, look, man, this kid's got a lot of ties to Nebraska. Matt Rule is doing everything they want. And you know what, Joe? Look, we talked to a couple of Nebraska fans on here, at least I have. They are yearning for a winner. They are really yearning to be good again, to get back to prominence. Getting a quarterback under Matt Rule like Dylan Raiola, and by the way, they might even add Kyle McCord, put you so much in a different stratosphere, Joe, from where they have been to where they are. Because look, year one under Matt Rule, they played pretty good defense. They weren't that bad. They maybe some skill positions away and a quarterback away, maybe being an 8-9 win team. I think, look, they play tough. They play physical. Defensively, they were okay. Look what they did against Iowa. And look, you can say what you want about Iowa. Iowa's still a 10-win team, right? Like they're still won 10 games in the Big Ten. Would be massive if they could pull off Dylan Raiola, though.
So there's two things to really focus on here. One, what does this mean for Nebraska, what does this mean for Georgia? Dylan Raiola is one of the highest graded kids and the top rated quarterback in this class. A lot of shades of Quinn Ewers, Patrick Mahomes. It's a very common trend these days to highly rate these kids that are good improvisers, that can throw on the run, that have, really good velocity on their footballs. He is a transcendent quarterback prospect. I'm not going to go as far as to say that, this is a surefire first overall pick. I think that it's a little bit of a step too far, but he's still somebody who can step in and play at a high level and very positively impact your team's success. I look at Nebraska's situation for them to bring home a kid who has family ties. His father played there. His uncle is on the coaching staff. For all of that to come through and for him to be a part of this football program absolutely changes the trajectory of the program. We look at what Arch Manning has done in terms of just general name recognition and focus and how much we've talked about Texas and his eventual impact as a starter. It's tremendous. And the same thing here can happen with Dylan Raiola because he's so highly talked about. And even if he doesn't play up to the ceiling that we've set for him, he's still going to give Nebraska a lot of positive attention. I think that this would be so huge for them, man. And I think that when you get somebody like this, Raiola is good enough to attract top receivers in the current class and the next recruiting cycle in 2025 to be enticed to come play for the Cornhuskers. That's how impactful of a guy like he is.
Specifically a wide receiver, right? Like, I mean, you could probably add, show that at minimum, Joe, you get in the door with some receivers maybe that you weren't initially going to get in the door with. But look, I'm going to throw this out here to Georgia fans, okay, that will listen to this or listen to it now or listen to the clip. Dylan Raiola is at Buford, okay? It's playing football at Buford, transferred in. But KJ Bolden, the safety, Joe, is also a safety from Buford who is committed to Florida State. Now, Kirby went in home with him a couple of days ago, I saw, trying to get that flip to Georgia. But look, two of the top three kids in your state, in the state of Georgia, play at Buford. One of them might be out the door, and one of them's committed somewhere else. So I do think that maybe the entire state of Georgia is going to blacklist Buford if their two top recruits, two of the top three, I should say, go somewhere else, not named the University of Georgia. But look, what does this mean for Georgia? You talked about Nebraska. Changes absolutely nothing for me. Like, literally changes nothing for me when it comes to Georgia. When you are winning 2 national titles with a walk-on, Joe, they had one loss this year with Carson Beck. Carson Beck's probably going to come back, and the likelihood, Joe, that they could go on to a run next year and win a national title in a 12-team playoff is astronomically high. Dylan Raiola, you could go anywhere else, okay, maybe not named Alabama, LSU, maybe even Auburn, okay, that rightfully plays Georgia every single year to some extent, maybe not LSU and Alabama, but those two teams play next year. If he goes outside the SEC, it doesn't bother them. Nebraska's not going to be on the pace with Dylan Raiola that Georgia is. Georgia can what's the word I'm looking for here, Joe? They can or the expression, maybe I should say, they can take this loss, right? Like Dylan Raiola could go somewhere else. Now, you don't want that high star of a quarterback going somewhere else. But I'm not worried about Georgia winning or losing football games because Dylan Raiola goes to Nebraska.
Right. I agree with you on that. And this is what I was leading into earlier. Yes, as a Georgia fan, you should feel a little disenfranchised that the kid's not coming. It's always exciting when you pull the top quarterback recruit, no matter what year it is, who the kid is. It's always exciting. And it's always nice to point to and say all of the top players at most of the top positions want to come play and be a Georgia Bulldog. But as I said earlier, Ryan Puglisi was already committed before Dylan Raiola committed. He was already a part of this recruiting class. He's a high 4-star. I listen to a lot of recruiting podcasts because I like to kind of get that sense of like who those next guys are. What's that next wave of players coming in, those next prospects. And a lot of the things that I've heard on Puglisi is that some people actually think and thought there was a possibility that Puglisi could have beaten out Raiola when it came time for the two of them to compete for the job, and Raiola would have transferred. There was even some speculation that maybe Raiola went to Georgia for a year and then ended up transferring to Nebraska, kind of like what we saw happen with Quinn Ewers. He's that big of a name that one might assume and might say that it could benefit him to end up leaving if he doesn't get an early path to becoming the eventual starter. Puglisi's a really talented player, very, very talented player. I would not be upset if I lose Dylan Raiola. This isn't a circumstance like last year where I think of like Dante Moore was committed to Oregon, last second changes his mind, goes to UCLA, and then Oregon had to figure out last second who was going to be their next guy. They already have someone committed. And Puglisi wants to be a Georgia Bulldog so bad that he stayed committed this whole time, no matter what.
Well,
so
look,
I'm not worried.
Georgia's recruited really well at that position too. I mean, so again,
yeah, they've got good depth.
Yeah, and that kid probably wants to play like, hey, let me sit behind Kyle McCord for a year, and then take a red shirt if I can, and then next year, unless injury happens, I'm going to sit a year. I think it's smart for both. I don't say it's smart for both parties, but it's smart for Raiola. And look, he can transfer. If it doesn't go well there, he can always transfer to Georgia, right? Like, I mean, it's not like this is an end-all, be-all type of situation here. So we'll see. But look, here's another thing, too. Another coach or another person in college football is being moved. Manny Diaz now is the next head coach of the Duke Blue Devils. Joe, I told you during the season, and we talked about this during the non-playing portion of the year. If you remember when we talked about Penn State, how high I was on Manny Diaz and have continued to be high on Manny Diaz, Joe, they're the number one total defense in the country for a reason. I get they're playing in the Big Ten, but look, they did respectfully good against teams like Ohio State, teams like Michigan. The defense was not the problem. But you know what's interesting that I saw, Joe, when Manny Diaz was announced to be the next head coach of the Duke Blue Devils, that, he was a failure at Miami. No, he wasn't. He was 21-15 at Miami. He was averaging going 7-5, which, just making this well known, to the current exact moment is better than Mario Cristobal has been doing. So
yes.
What do you mean? And by the way, he was progressively getting better. He had a 9-win year, then a 7-win year. And you remember how that whole transition went down. Manny Diaz was kind of wrongfully done by the University of Miami. Now, they were going through a lot of changes and AD, and I think he was just on the chopping block. Probably the best that he was out of there and went to Penn State. I think that this is a phenomenal pickup by Duke. I think he's going to win some football games there. I think that he's going to recruit at a high level and develop. And look what he's developed at Penn State in 2 quick years. Joe, they went from being a middle of the pack defense in Penn State. Joe, they're the number one total defense in the country, right? I think that he can recruit and develop and do some good things at Duke. I really do like Manny Diaz in North Carolina.
I agree with you on that.
I shouldn't say North Carolina. I should say I was saying like the actual state. Not Duke fans. If there are Duke fans, don't kill me on that. Continue.
I agree with you on that. I think Manny Diaz is a fantastic, brilliant defensive mind, and I think it's really cool that he gets to compete against Mac Brown now, who I believe was his former boss at one point. He gets to compete against Mario Cristobal, who stole his job that he was doing well at. Right. Brilliant defensive coach. And the reason why that I think that this is great for Duke is that they already had a brilliant defensive mind to transition to having another guy who builds along the line of scrimmage, is going to produce a very confusing and disruptive defense, knows how to just continue the current trend of defensive success. I love this for Duke, but this is a bad decision by Manny Diaz. I'm sorry, but this is not Manny Diaz is not in the same circumstance of Mike Elko, who that was his first head coaching opportunity. Manny Diaz has been through the ringer multiple places, and he got the short end of the stick with what happened at Miami. I think if he was going to jump ship and take a head coaching gig, he should have waited. I think that there would have been a much better opportunity that provides way better resources and is more committed to winning and producing productive results on the field. He should have waited for that opportunity. I don't think Duke is that. They've got some of the worst facilities from what I've heard in the ACC. They are not committed to football. They're just not, and it is hard to recruit there that I wouldn't be shocked if this doesn't end up, turning out badly. And it sucks for him. I hope that doesn't happen.
I think you make an interesting point in reference to possibly Manny holding out for a better job. I don't know if Duke's not an okay job.
It's fine.
Well, you can win at Duke. You can win at Duke. You can win 9 games at Duke.
You can win 7 games at Duke.
You can win 9 games at Duke.
As an exception.
If Riley Leonard doesn't get hurt, are you 1,000% confident that they don't win 9 games?
Yeah, because Mike Elko completely exceeded expectations.
That's
an exception, though.
They have a top 40 recruiting class. Okay, they got some good pieces in there.
But that's like a rarity. Mike Elko did the right thing leaving after 2 years after he got a first big job offer.
Well, maybe Manny Diaz will do that. And here's another thing: the schools that maybe would go after him, they're not open to him. Nor would they be open. I mean, think about what would be the coaching hot board next year? Maybe Florida.
You don't think Florida wouldn't go after? Actually,
Lane Kiffin?
That's a good point. That's a good point.
I'm
trying to think who would open up realistically.
There's not a lot of coaches unless.
What about Arkansas? Like if you have another
Manny Diaz ain't going to Arkansas.
I'm just saying if you have another top 10 defensive year, that's like the one that comes off the top of my head immediately, where they typically hire assistants more often than they hire previous head coaches. Like Sam Pittman was an offensive line coach. I think that would be good.
Why do I just feel like Bobby Petrino is going to be the next head coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks?
You think that they're going to do that?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what they're going to do. I think they had to find a way to get him back, and this is the way.
That would actually be insane to do the whole switcheroo like that. That's crazy.
I mean, Ed Orgeron did it twice.
Where? Outside of LSU. Where else did he do it?
USC. I mean, he didn't get the full-time head job, but
he was the interim. Yeah.
Don't forget about Big O, which, by the way, Florida fans, remember when the Florida fans were thinking Ed Orgeron was going to be their next defensive line coach?
Dude, I love the bit. I will say I love the bit whenever there's an opening for like defensive coordinator or defensive line. He's the first guy that's brought up.
First one. Roback's paying too good, man. Roback's just paying too good for him to be there. Speaking of that, can I add a segment really quickly?
Go ahead.
Florida, they're losing a lot of commits. Made me think about this. Can we add that right quick?
Yeah.
All right. So the University of Florida, Joe, it's been a rough couple of weeks for the University of Florida. They are starting to lose some big blue chip recruits. Look, man, I think Florida is just a place that you can win. Urban Meyer, Steve Spurrier, hell, even Dan Mullen and cousin Eddie. Okay, why is his name not Cousin Eddie? The one that looks like a horse, the one that has the green teeth. He's at Central Michigan now.
Oh, Jim McElwain. Yeah,
Jim McElwain. Okay, Jim McElwain won a couple of SEC East titles at Florida. Now, I don't think he could do that now and obviously there's not divisions. You can win at Florida. Joe, just to throw this out here, I don't know. I don't think Billy can hold on. I think this is Billy's last year. He's losing too many recruits. There's a lot of people chirping to DJ Lagway that he should flip and try to go somewhere else. Man, this ship is burning for Billy Napier right now. Now, could he pull an Eli Drinkwitz? Could he just completely go stupid, wins 8, 9, 10 games? I don't think he can, Joe. That schedule next year is brutal. I think look, I think Billy's a good guy. I think Billy gives you everything he's got. I just cannot see Florida and Billy Napier hanging on to one another. I think it's about to get bad in Gainesville, man. I really do.
I think this is one of the few times that I'm like really down the middle, because I'm legitimately concerned with some of these flips that you're talking about, some of these guys that they've lost, and I'm sure that the Florida fans are gonna. I always love when kids decommit and they flip somewhere else, people come in the comments, well, this kid happened to have this happen, so he was never going to actually come to Florida. Like, that's always it's always hilarious, and Florida fans
Yeah,
do
Florida.
a lot of excuse
Florida is
making.
the number one team of doing that too. By the way,
Dude, when Jaden Rashada last year
I know
was going to flip his commitment, and for a week I talked about it on this show on the First Team, which is transfer portal show and stuff like that. They swore that was made up information, and then he ends up at Arizona State. It's concerning to me that in the portal that a lot of important players have hopped in the portal right now. Like Trevor Etienne, losing him, that's bad. There's no good way to spin.
Massive loss.
No good way. No good way to spin that. DJ Uman Mielen, I feel like that's kind of like I'm not the biggest fan of him as a player, but still he's one of your more talented defenders. For him to enter the portal is a little bit problematic. If he keeps DJ Lagway, though, I'm gonna be in wait and see mode, because DJ Lagway could have the argument of being the top quarterback in this class. Like, the kid is freaking talented. Put up stupid numbers.
But should he go there? It doesn't make any sense. What sense does it make? Billy's system.
We're not in the kid's head, though. We don't.
But it doesn't fit Billy's system. You know what Billy's got to hit on? Graham Mertz is coming back, and then he takes another step into this offense, and that they really get things rolling. Because, Joe, I don't see it. They're not bringing in dudes from the portal. Okay, they're losing guys. They're losing too many dudes. All right, now we got a long way to go until next season starts. Joe, I don't see an out here. And you think DJ Lagway is going to go into Florida and start beating Georgia, LSU, Alabama, A&M, Texas, Oklahoma? They can't do that. Joe, they're on the tier. Can I tell you the truth? They're below Kentucky. They're below Missouri.
Right now they are, yeah. Yeah, they definitely are.
Be honest. Look, they're Arkansas. Joe, the last 3 years, really 4 years, they're Arkansas.
I don't disagree with that. I mean, their performance has been pitiful on the field, and it's going to still take them a couple of years before they can be back in that position of being one of the top teams in the SEC. And you add Texas and Oklahoma into the mix, and it makes it even freaking harder.
They're not asking him to be that right now. They're asking him to get to a bowl game. Like, let's. I get what you're trying to say, to be back on top of the SEC. They're not asking him to be there. They're asking him to say, hey, Blake and Joe are about to talk about the Alamo Bowl. Can you get us to the damn Alamo Bowl? Can you get us there? And that's a big difference in being an 8-9 win team, Joe, just to being bowl eligible. Like, it's so bad. Joe, he had Anthony Richardson, and this is when you knew it was bad. So you mean to tell me that everybody and their mama thought that kid was a top 5 pick, even though I didn't, but everybody thought that kid was a top 5 pick. With the traits that dude has, you shouldn't be going to a bowl game, right? Like, I mean, what are we talking about? And look, Graham Mertz, God bless his soul, in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost. Joe, where would they be without Graham Mertz?
Yeah, I mean, that steadiness. That steadiness did help them, and I've been one of the first to admit that I thought that Graham Mertz played a lot better than I expected he would. I will throw this out there. I mean, you just talked about Missouri. There are some capable, comparable things here with Missouri and Florida. You have a quarterback who showed some nice things, who took a big step forward the following year, who's got some traits. Brady Cook, we were ready to bench Brady Cook. I thought the kid stunk, and he took this huge step.
No, you were.
The Missouri fans booed
y'all
him.
Were.
No. Missouri fans booed Brady Cook. They didn't like him either. They didn't like him either. He took a huge step forward, and suddenly, Missouri fans love him. But my point is that if, Graham Mertz could take this improving step forward, be one of the better starting quarterbacks in the SEC, you've got a brilliant young defensive mind in Armstrong, who's your defensive coordinator. He gets a better feel for the roster. You throw in some of these young pieces, but they got to do better in the portal, man. Like, they got to bring in some guys this cycle that are in that upper half of the portal players in order to take that next step. But I don't think it's unrealistic for them to shock people next year. I think it's certainly capable.
I would be
but it's going to be really freaking hard.
I'd be utterly shocked because that schedule is brutal. Joe, here's the truth. You ready? I know that they've gotten to some SEC championship games, but relatively, think about this. Florida has not been relevant in a national championship type of hype since Reggie Bush was winning Heisman trophies.
Yeah. What?
Tim Tebow was how long ago?
Early 2000s. I don't know what year was off the top of my head.
Mid to late 2000s. I mean, Joe, we're talking about a decade plus of them getting to national title pictures. That can't happen at Florida, man. And
they should have never fired Mullen. They should have never fired Dan Mullen.
So my good friend David Waters at Gators Breakdown was actually the reason he got fired because he asked Mullen about recruiting. Okay. All right. Well, it sounds good, but Billy's not doing you any justice here. He's just not. They're not hiring dudes that can win at Florida. To be the best, you got to go pay for the best. I mean, that you just do. And then you talk about Missouri just a minute ago. Did you see that Marcus Carroll just committed to Missouri, the running back from Georgia State? Dude.
Yeah.
Drink's on one right now. So, again, you're talking about Florida in this. I don't know where they are in the pecking order. Joe, they're close to Arkansas. How about this? Right now, Florida is closer to Vanderbilt than they are Missouri.
I won't go that far. They've been bad, but Vanderbilt is wait. Florida's brought in way better recruits.
Hold on now. They are closer to having 3 wins. Excuse me. Because they went 5-7. They are closer from a record standpoint of being Vandy than they are to getting a 10-win regular season. Tell me I'm wrong.
Statistically, that's not like an incorrect statement, but we know that the quality of play on the field is different than it is for Vanderbilt to Florida. It's very different. I don't agree with that statement.
Statistically, it's not wrong.
They at least have like the pieces to get to where Missouri is.
Your best offensive piece just hit the portal. The other one's going into the draft. Ricky Pearsall's gone, brother. Like, who? Okay, they got the Johnson kid out wide. Name the other dudes that they have. They're losing Johnson? So many. Who?
Their running back. Their other running back.
Montrell's gone, right?
Is he?
Montrell's been in college football since the Reagan administration.
Let me see if I can find this. I mean, even if look, there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Their best offensive piece. So was Ricky Pearsall. They're out the door. So again, they're not adding now at the current moment on December 11th. They don't have the dudes that can win because, Joe, you're gonna have to beat the LSU.
Wait, so to be fair though, and I've said this a lot with Hugh Freeze and the difficult circumstance that he was in a very difficult spot with this year. And Hugh Freeze has outperformed Billy Napier already in a season. I will concede that, but he was given a shit roster because Brian Harsin didn't recruit, and Dan Mullen. He had a lot of talent. He developed a lot of talent, but he did not recruit effectively enough. And so admittedly, I'm giving Billy a little bit of an excuse here. He was put in a really difficult spot to deal with the roster that he currently has. It's going to still take them a couple of seasons. Last year's recruiting class was still pretty good despite them not getting Jaden Rashada. And I think that this year's class, if they don't lose any more kids, if none of those kids decide to flip, it's another positive step forward. But I'm telling you right now,
they are flipping.
If they lose any more if they do lose any more 5 stars, then yes, we can hit the panic button. But realistically, you're not going to keep in the modern era of NIL, you're not going to keep every single kid committed. You're just not when you have a bad team.
No, but you should be able to keep majority of them. And like LJ McCray, good luck. All right. Let's do this, Joe. Let's talk about our good friends over at Home Field Apparel. You want to come back and talk about the Alamo and the Cotton?
Let's do it.
All right, well, let's do that. We talk about bowl games previews. We do that next. Stay with us.
Ruffino and Joe Show is brought to you by Home Field Apparel, which is the best, without a doubt, premium collegiate apparel brand that is out there. They have over 150 different colleges that you can choose from, whether you're an Illinois fan or a Rutgers fan, maybe you're an LSU fan like Blake, or maybe you're an Alabama fan. Whatever it is, even Idaho, they have so many different designs for so many different football programs that I can guarantee you're going to find some great stuff to help root for your favorite team. I've already gotten my Notre Dame stuff. Blake has his LSU stuff. Make sure you head on over to homefieldapparel.com to check out your team's collection of clothing apparel that they have on the website. And when you do so, when you check out, make sure you use promo code RuffinoJoe to get 15% off your order. That is RUFFINO, Ruffino Joe. Head on over to homefieldapparel.com and get your college gear today.
You want to go Cotton first or Alamo?
Let's do the Cotton Bowl first.
The Cotton Bowl preview, Ohio State. We just got done talking about this other team, though. Missouri face off in the Cotton Bowl this bowl season. Joe, I went first on our last segment. I'll give you over to this one. What do you think about Ohio State and the Fighting Eli Drinkwitzes?
So with a lot of these bowl games, because we have all these opt-outs and kids entering the transfer portal, it's really tricky to really actually predict these games, and I'm more focused on what we can learn about them. Devin Brown, I would expect and anticipate he's probably going to be the starting quarterback in this game unless there's something that we don't know about and there's somebody further down the depth chart that they're going to try and roll with. No Kyle McCord means we get to see Devin Brown. I'd love to see what Devin Brown brings to the table. I would love to find out if maybe they were holding themselves back by not giving him more of an opportunity. He's a much better athlete than Kyle McCord was. Part of me thinks that we were missing out on getting to see an electric playmaker because they wanted to build off of the connection that Kyle McCord and Marvin Harrison Jr. already had. Now, if I were to pick a direction on where I lean in this, I think the obvious answer is Missouri. Considering what Missouri is going to be bringing back, that Luther Burden is not going anywhere, that Brady Cook's not going anywhere, a number of these defensive players are not going anywhere. There haven't been NFL draft declarations, but I don't know what's happening with JT Tuimolau. I don't know what's happening with Michael Hall Jr. I don't know what is happening with Tyleik Williams. Most of that defense could end up declaring for the draft by the time that this game is played. Missouri is a young team. It's a very underrated young team. And I think that the way that they finished the season, how good they looked in the final stretch of games, even against Georgia, we have to go with Missouri here, man. Like, we'd be crazy not to pick Missouri.
Hey, do you remember in the prediction preview of this show, do you remember a guy being on this show who comes on the show every day, who was laughed at by people who said that Missouri would have 10 wins and being the second team in the East? Do you remember who that might have been?
I think it was you. I wasn't far behind you, though. I didn't say 10 wins, but I thought that they were going to be sneaky good.
Interesting. You hit the nail on the head. I think opt-outs. I think Kyle McCord not being there. Look, you're about to see because look, Joe, I don't mean this in a wrong way to Ohio State fans. Can Brown be a good player, good quarterback? Yeah. But it's a lose-lose in a sense, okay, for Ohio State fans. Either number one, you weren't playing the best quarterback. If Devin Brown goes out there and just absolutely eats, okay, in this bowl game, you always have the perception of, well, man, could this guy have beaten Michigan this past year?
Yeah.
The other problem is, well, what if Kyle McCord really was their best hope of winning, all right, for this season? And Devin Brown, you don't look good offensively. You're anemic. We'll have to wait and see. But I do agree with you and lean with you on Missouri because, look, their young guys aren't opting out. You're not hearing about opt-outs from them. Let's see what Cody Schrader does. A lot of people think Cody Schrader's going to give it a go for Missouri too. I think it means more to them. I think Ohio State and just the fan base and the program feels a little down where you're coming in with Missouri and, dude, they're all guns a-blazing. They're in a New Year's Six Bowl. They want to get to 11 wins. Like, it means so much more to them. But if Ohio State does play, like all their dudes do play, Missouri might have a little bit of struggle on their hands now. Like if it were like it was in the regular season, okay, minus Kyle McCord, because I don't think you're missing out a whole hell of a lot with Kyle McCord and
no.
Then they might have a little bit of a game on their hands. I agree with you. The opt-outs are a big thing. I'm not even looking at the comments. I'm assuming Elks is losing his damn mind.
He sent us a super chat, but yeah, Elks is.
All right, we'll put it up here. What do you say? What do you say?
Y'all will see why DB33 won the battle before McCord's daddy stepped in. Also, West Dakota Heisman Lincoln Keyholtz will play. Oh, I forgot that Lincoln Keyholtz is the next guy down. I was trying to remember who the hell it was.
Put that back up. Put that back up.
Thank you for sending that, Elks, by the way.
Thank you for sending it. But let me ask a question. He says that Devin Brown 33 won the battle before McCord's daddy stepped in. So you mean to tell me that Ryan Day is allowing somebody's daddy to dictate the starting quarterback of Ohio State? If that's the truth, then he should be fired right now, and everybody in Ohio and Ohio State fans should be a damn shame of themselves.
I'm not going to – I can't speak on where I have this information, and I can't go into any depth, but
you better. You better.
I can't. And you and I both understand, when we have sourcing
I go into depth on this show all the time.
Yeah, but you've got certain sourcing that you can't go into depth on. What I was going to say, though, it seems like there's a lot of quarterback politicking going on in the back end. And I didn't hear about his father stepping in. I don't know anything about that. But it seemed like a very just troubling, overly, what's the word I'm looking for? Not emotional, but just a dramatic, very dramatic situation that was going on. And I'm sure that there was a lot of play on this from Marvin Harrison Jr. that maybe had said something and it, played into that decision, and they probably asked him. But yeah, the whole thing was a mess. It wouldn't surprise me if there is some validity to that. And from what I'm hearing right now with the Cam Ward stuff, seems like it's even more of a mess of what's going on there. And them just in general pushing out Kyle McCord is pretty nuts, and it is pretty shitty that all that happened. But I would love to see Devin Brown play well.
You don't think that's a fireable offense if somebody's daddy is dictating that his son started at a college like this?
Yeah, but that's he said, she said. That's like just like no one really knows if that's true or not.
Well, Elk says it's true.
We can't. No one's gonna get. He's not gonna get fired off of people making
We're talking about his daddy.
An accusation like that.
Do you see any path for Ohio State winning this football game?
Yeah, I mean, if all their top players, if all those defensive players, Marvin Harrison Jr.
Marvin Harrison Jr. is not playing. He's not.
If all those guys play in this game, yeah, they win the football game. If the roster we saw that played during the regular season plays, they have a better team. They win the football game. But I think as you're talking about with all these opt-outs, the point that you made, I think that hits the most home for me, is this means a lot more for Missouri.
A whole hell of a lot
that Ohio State roster, you think that they're not a little a little bit bummed that they're playing in the Cotton Bowl? You think that they're not a little bit, feel like they're getting the short end of the stick here, that they were about to be in the playoff. They were the number one team in the country, and here they are playing in the Cotton Bowl. But Missouri, everybody doubted them, and there's a possibility for them to win 10 games.
I think 11 games. They'll be 11 games. Yeah.
Sorry, 11 games. I think that they're going to be way more motivated. I really do.
Did you see the Eli Drinkowitz comments?
Which one? Oh,
when they were announcing the bowl games, Reese Davis and the guys at ESPN said we're talking to him, and he said he got a phone call from Connor Stallions, and that he's going to be listening to Connor Stallions on all these calls. Let me ask this question, Joe, because a lot of Ohio State fans are pissed off about the season. Am I the only person on planet Earth that doesn't think that Ryan Day's doing a bad job? Like, I mean, he's in the same exact position that Kirby's in for this year. Like this year, they're one loss away from being in the playoff. Like, that's a hard pill to swallow. I mean, it's not as if, Joe, that they're week in, week out being run out the building, right? Like, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but call me crazy too. If my team's 11-1 at the regular season, I get that you're losing to your arch rival, but you've been splitting these things with them. So I mean, am I crazy in thinking that Ryan Day's just not doing as bad of a job as people think he is?
I think that the criticism's justified. I really do, because you have to look at the way that this roster and the way that that program was set up by Urban Meyer. They were in a national championship competing situation.
Well, then why
And they
didn't
were
Urban Meyer get more chances at it?
they
I mean, Ryan Day's
they
coached more
were
national championships in the last 10 years, or the same amount as Ryan.
But he at least won, he's won one, and you could even argue that on a recruiting level, he was doing a much better job overall than what Ryan Day was.
I don't disagree with that.
I just think that they're still really good, but are you paying Ryan Day all this money? Is he your head coach just to be really good? Or do you want to be elite? Do you want to be – they played a great playoff game last year, but you got to get over the hump. And it feels like every year they take not a giant step backward, but it feels like they take just a very small step backward, every single season.
Oh, I thought they took a step forward this year, if I'm being honest.
I think they took a step backward with the fact that they didn't have a quarterback who could win them the most important game of the season.
Michigan versus last year, they got run out the building at their place.
But I think that's a little different though.
You're a field goal away from beating Georgia a year ago. Okay,
with a far better quarterback,
but you still lost.
The progression of quarterbacks
I can make the argument, Joe, that they're closer to Michigan than they were a year ago.
One team didn't have their head coach though on this. One of those.
I don't give two shits. I don't give two shits. You know why I don't give two shits? Can I tell you why?
He got beat by an assistant. That's not good. He got to beat by an assistant.
I don't give a shit about that. Can I tell you why? And I think it's null and void, because last year he had their signals, and we got proof that he had their signals.
Okay, well, the whole signal thing is why the game was more lopsided. They don't have the signals here this year, and it was much closer, and you still couldn't frickin' beat them because your quarterback played like shit. That's where I'm getting at. That's a step backward. The fact that you go from CJ Stroud, who arguably some people could say here, and I'm one of these people, could have played even better than he did at times last year and maybe was misused because he's playing, look, in 1 year in the NFL, he's playing at an elite level. He's been in the MVP conversation. Nobody thought he did that quality of work at Ohio State last year. A lot of people doubted him because he looked rough at times, because he wasn't set up in as good of a position as he has been already as a rookie in the NFL. He looks better from last year as a rookie in the NFL against harder competition. And you go from that to a kid who threw multiple bad throws against Michigan and Penn State.
You know who so let me throw this to you, my last point here. What if I told you a coach, first-time head coach in the first 4 years, played for a national title and lost, has multiple 10 and 11 win seasons in the first 4 years? Who does that sound like?
Ryan Day.
It's also Kirby Smart's record when his first 4 years at Georgia. So
okay, but he didn't take over a program that was in national championship conversation. He took over a weak in Georgia. No, he took Mark Richt put them in a weak position that he took over.
Georgia's always been in the top 5 of recruiting.
But
they had Rudy Poo, Mark Richt, who was just going to lose games. What do we? If you're,
but that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Take over a dumpster fire, dog.
He didn't, but he has transformed them. Meanwhile, Ryan Day has taken them a step backward.
Bullshit. Kirby Smart's got a bowl cut and can walk outside and a 5-star standing right outside his door.
Georgia, and you have to admit this, Georgia's always been one of the better teams in the SEC. They've always capably been one of the that's my point there. They have not always been this perennial, always in the national championship conversation team.
The teams that they're
Ohio
playing,
State has.
The teams that they're playing, though, don't have the level of competition that Ohio State had in the Big Ten. When you're having to face LSU, Florida, and Alabama with Nick Saban, Les Miles, and those boys, it's a completely different scenario.
But that's even more of an accomplishment that Kirby Smart's able to do all that. Meanwhile, Ryan Day plays Iowa and Minnesota, and he's
out of here. I told
Beat
you
the shit out of nobody's.
So I gave you the resume. Both of them are equal. I said one was Kirby, and it's the exact same as Ryan Day. And you're like, oh, well, that's completely different.
But
when
the circumstances are different.
When I didn't give you the names, you didn't say shit.
The circumstance, because there's context. There's necessary context that has to be added into this conversation that we're having.
You made me say the Lord's name in vain. That's how pissed off you make me sometimes.
Kirby Smart's a way better coach
than Ryan Day. Can I tell you something? When we argue, it's the Irish coming out in you. It's not the Italian. Because
what are you talking about? Italians yell more than Irish people.
All right, we got about 9 minutes. You want to talk about the Alamo?
Yeah, let's talk about the Alamo Bowl.
Joe, I'm really looking forward to this next game that we're going to talk about. Oklahoma, Arizona. Going to be teeing it off. One going into the Big 12, one leaving the Big 12, going into the SEC. Joe, I'm about to say something you're not going to like. AZ. You're
an Oklahoma hater. You're an Oklahoma hater.
No, I'm not. I picked Oklahoma to beat Texas.
I know. I'm just kidding.
I picked them to win the Big 12. What are we talking about here? I like Oklahoma a lot, but Jackson Arnold's going to be starting this game. Dylan Gabriel's going to Oregon. I've seen Arizona and Coach Fish and those boys with their freshman quarterback and being successful. Joe, they had their backup quarterback, a true freshman, I might add, comes in, they get better. Let me say this, because I kind of let it off. I'm not completely saying that Arizona is going to win. What I will say is I do not like that I have a true freshman quarterback getting his first start in a bowl game versus these Arizona Wildcats. Can he play up to the potential of his 5-star status in Arnold? Yes. And if he even remotely comes close, they're going to put Arizona's face in the dirt, okay? But Arizona is that scrappy team you don't want to be playing during bowl season. I like the Cats here. I think I will, when we do our pick 'em, I think I will take the Cats here. Down goes the Alamo, and Arizona is involved.
First, really quick, stupid takeaway thought here. I love the hilarity of the fact that the Alamo Bowl used to be a nothing game, and because of the college football playoff, it somehow has become one of the better bowl games. I mean, last year Washington, Texas was a premier matchup, and this year these are two really good teams that are playing in the Alamo Bowl. But I agree with you that Arizona has an advantage because Noah Fafita has been great this year. He is a young player, but he has just shown so much growth in a short period of time. And it's crazy that Jaden Delora's the starter at the beginning of the year. They look like complete and utter shit. Noah Fafita steps in, and they take a huge step forward. That is awesome to me. And I think that the future is very bright for the next couple of seasons for Arizona because of it. They're also not a very veteran team. They're bringing back a lot of guys. Their best, most veteran player, Jordan Morgan, their left tackle, is the only guy that I know of that's going on to the NFL draft that is going to be a huge loss for them not playing in this game. But at the same time, Oklahoma also has a lot of guys coming back. You know, they're not a team that's getting picked apart by the portal.
Just announced that he wasn't going into the portal and he was coming back.
And Danny Stutzman was supposed to go to the NFL draft and he's coming back.
Right.
They've also got a number of younger players on this roster. Peyton Bowen, their defensive line is a really strong unit. Their offensive line's a pretty strong unit. I like both these teams, just getting to see the potential future of 2024, what they can do, and seeing some glimpses of it. I lean Arizona right now because of some of the stuff you said, but this is one of those games where I almost don't care about the outcome because I'm going to be so focused on seeing what Jackson Arnold does. I think that the kid is so talented. I think that he could step in. Cade Klubnik's the one who comes to mind immediately, but Cade Klubnik didn't do that well this year. I'm trying to think of somebody like a good freshman who played a little bit and then transcended the following season. I'm trying to think of a good example, but regardless, I think he could play good.
We've never really had this before. I mean, this is kind of a new thing, like Joe, when we were growing up, people were playing the bowl game. It wasn't until Jalen Smith went down that people started saying, hell yeah, no, I ain't playing in this.
Yeah, in the portal. I'm trying to think that I don't know why there's somebody off the top of my head that I can't think of. It fits what I'm trying to get at. But regardless, I want to see what he does because he's so freaking good, man. He's got so much talent. He could play his ass off and really shine in this game.
I guess you could say Cardell Jones, but
nah, I don't know if that works.
Yeah, that didn't really work. Yeah, it's a good point. I think it just hinges on him, but I do think that I do like for Oklahoma, just as a program moving forward, and we'll talk about this during the offseason, getting a lot of those seniors back is crucial for them going into the SEC. So crucial for them going into the SEC. And look, you get a good matchup against a feisty Arizona team. Look, I just think, again, Joe, a lot of these bowl games that I've learned over the last 3 years, remember when we did this last year, and remember the bowl pick 'em, everybody's like, how are you winning these stupid bowl games with all these opt-outs? I'm just like, what program wants to win it more? And that's like literally I went down the entire thing, won like 87% of my picks last year in the bowl games because I was just like, who freaking wants it more? Like, who's not a complete dumpster fire? Yes. I just, for whatever reason, feel that both of these teams are on that same level because Jackson Arnold's coming in, got a lot of guys back. But don't mess around with the Cats, man. Coach Fish and the boys, they are a feisty group, man. A feisty group. So we'll see how that one goes down.
Yeah, no, it's both teams. Both teams are very feisty. Arizona could maybe surprise some people.
Yeah, and look, here's another thing we hadn't talked about. Jeff Lebby's not going to be calling plays.
Oh, that's actually a very good point.
Yeah,
I almost completely forgot about that.
Yeah, Jeff Lebby not calling plays for Oklahoma. At least he does. I don't think that he is. I highly doubt he is. I think it's a big deal, and especially for a quarterback like Lebby's the only voice that he had been hearing all year, and to go in there and run another offense that is coming from a different voice, I think is a big problem. I would think.
Well, it was an internal promotion, so it's not like you've got a fill-in guy and there's another guy who's like leaning over his shoulder. They're probably going to run the same offense.
I'm sure they will. I'm not saying that, but it's a different sequence of how you call things.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. We will see you guys again on Wednesday night. Until then, all of you have a good one, Joe. A great show.
Yeah.
Man, I'm looking forward to these playoff games getting started, these ball games getting started here soon. So we'll be here. We'll see you on Wednesday. Y'all have a good night. Peace.